Hello, everybody. Good evening for me. Good afternoon for everybody else. This is the Wizards of Ox Live, and we are here with Karla Wiersma and with Susan Owens. Monique is on her way, and we hope she's going to be able to join us soon. And this is our last live of 2022. Can you believe it? It's been a great ride. It was a spur of the moment idea to just have a video to start sharing our experiences. And it's turned out into this lovely weekly meeting with these lovely ladies that know so much and I learn every day from. And we're hoping that it's useful for all of you. To remember that whatever that we propose does not constitute medical advice. We are assuming that you are under the care of a medical doctor. And today's theme, we're going to be talking about parties, about family, about travel, about all those things that we've done for a number of years, living a low oxalate lifestyle, and how to make it easier for you and for basically your family or your loved ones that you're cooking the diet for. This is a very, very healing diet, and it should never be taken as a burden or something negative and terrible and something that you have to suffer through. This is also can be a foodie diet. It can be a fun diet. It can be a great choice to give the best fuel that you have for your body and to get you back and as that best version of yourself. So welcome everybody, and we're going to be talking tips and tricks for the holidays today. Hi, Karla, and hi, Susan. And so we're going to start maybe with some of the classic ones, which is, what do I eat if I'm going to be going to my friend's Christmas or the office Christmas party or the end of the year for this or that? Or I'm going with some friends to a Hanukkah celebration, whatever it might be, and I am dealing with low oxalate. So what do I do? First, does anybody, I see you both smiling, so tell us if you want to just jump in. Well, one of the easiest things that we did was always take something that we could eat. So always bring something that you could eat so that if you can't eat anything else, you're not stuck hungry. The other really important thing that we did, and it's something that the royals do, is that I always ate complete meal before going to somebody else's home. And you're going to say that's ridiculous. But it just made a lot easier to resist all those peanuts and all those, you know, crisps with, or those chips with beets and things like that, that they were much in the fashion. If you are not hungry, it's a lot easier to resist. And even if you're lodging in somebody else's home, for example, and you tell them, do you mind if I get, you know, a soup or something? And if you bring your own, you know, few of your own ingredients, you bring like a bowl of soup or something like that, and you eat that before everybody shows up, everything's just going to be easier. And that counts for kids as well. Yep. Karla, do you want to add something?
We used to bring fruit and veggie trays, you know, with, instead of, you know, we would throw out the celery sticks and we would put in bok choy, and we would still leave in, you know, a little broccoli, but instead of carrots, we would throw in some cauliflower, and then we would bring a dip that, you know, that Ian could have. And we would bring a separate fruit tray with grapes, watermelon, cantaloupe, you know, honeydew melon, things that we knew that he could have. And that seemed to work. And we also had, you know, something that he could, you know, he would eat something beforehand. You know, our dojo used to have tons they would do pizza parties. And he could never eat their pizzas. So, he would just, they were really good about letting me know, hey, Ian's going to be helping out, with a pizza party. Are there things that we can give him? And, and I'm like, here's the snacks that he can, have, if you throw in the broccoli and the bok choy, the kid's going to be going to town. I will make a pizza that he can have and he can bring it in. And they had a little microwave where they could heat everything up for him. Or I would send him stuff in a thermos and, he was good to go.
I would like to talk a little bit about, this party experience where there's going to be this big table with all this food and you're trying to figure out what can I eat and what can I not eat. And everybody who has any kind of dietary restrictions is, thinking the same way. And so one thing that you can do is, some places actually sell little label things that you can write on and, then erase it and then use it again. And so if you're going to a party and you suspect that there are other people there who might also have some sort of diet restriction, then you can have little labels that say gluten-free or low oxalate or vegan or whatever. And that way you can stick it in front of the food. And as long as people aren't moving it around, hopefully whoever's moving things around will move the label too. But that way it makes it a much more comfortable situation for everybody because nobody wants to eat what they can't eat. But goodness knows if somebody else, like I've been gluten-free for 25 years or so, and if somebody else has gone to the trouble to make a gluten-free food, I want to know it's gluten-free because I would love to eat something and not have to worry about it. So just be thinking about that as a way to, make the experience better for everybody.
We did that this Thanksgiving, not for gluten-free, but we said we had folks that were Jewish. We had folks that were Muslim, and they, there are certain restrictions. So we had listed foods that were, dishes that were halal, dishes that were kosher, and we threw out gluten-free. Most everyone that we know that came over, they're used to low oxalate. So, they just pretty much assumed it was all going to be low oxalate, which it was. So we didn't label that, but it is good to, especially if you have, like you said, folks coming over with dietary restrictions or just, food restrictions for religious reasons.
It's fun.
It's very helpful to put that out there and they appreciate it.
Absolutely. And it's really good to put just ingredients because, I'm Mexican and I live in Belgium. And so everybody's always expecting Mexican food from me, and then they get it and they're like, what's in it? And one of the things that has been really helpful is that idea of labeling that Susan mentioned. You can put gluten-free or this or that, or just the ingredients and just say, this is guacamole, and this is, avocados and coriander and lemon and salt and this and that. And then, sometimes we have some special ingredients. And it's like, oh, what's that? And then that can get a conversation going. And education, it can be an educational moment saying, this is Maya nut, and this is something that I'm bringing from, the Mayan territories, and it's a substitute for chocolate, and it's low oxalate. And wow, what amazing that is. So, we can have it. It really all depends on how you present it.
Well, I have a friend who can't eat onions. And, goodness knows, everybody knows that people use onions in all sorts of recipes. So, just be kind of cool about this because all of these changes that we have are special things. We can accommodate them. But one of the things that you might also consider is if you're going to a party and the hostess or the host, you can call them up beforehand and say, I was just wondering if there's anything thing that I need to know about when I'm cooking, that maybe I can accommodate more people if I know that maybe instead of using butter, I can use, something, coconut oil or something like that. If it's just the thoughtful thing to do, to find out if there's a way that we can make it stretch a little bit further and accommodate more people that might have a restriction. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you have to remember that a lot of these things that we're seeing now that we weren't seeing 50 years ago when our
No.
grandmothers were there, it's a lot has to do with our microbiome and the fact that they need to adapt. So and all, and that there have been all these changes and all these new toxins and new ingredients and new things. So you will be amazed to think that you are the only one with a restriction. I think you will be very, very surprised if you propose something like this, to find out just how many people are served restricting food because they're not feeling well.
And if you are making a modification to a standard recipe, like Mexican food, for instance, Patricia, I mean, there's certain things that you always put in guacamole or some, that are traditionally part of it. And if you have modified a recipe to make it not made the way it's usually made, then that might be something that you would need to label. Because otherwise somebody would go, well, I think this is always gluten-free, and oh my gosh, it's not. That sort of thing.
Exactly. So, but those are the kinds of things. Now, that's for like office parties and large gatherings and things like that. If you're having like an intimate dinner, or you're going with the family, or you're going somewhere to, well, first let's go to just the intimate one. Then you can bring a plate, something, you can offer something so that everybody can try it and that you feel very comfortable eating, and that you will not feel like you can't eat anything all evening, because that is really bad situation to be in. And it's very hard to not fall for the peanuts or the cookies or the whatever that might be there if you're starving. So that's really good thing. Also, the other thing that you have to remember is that we're talking about daily consumption of oxalate. So if you have a very good possibility of upping your oxalate during that famous dinner, well, make sure that the rest of your meals are low. Just make sure to keep those as low as possible so that you have a little bit more of margin for the evening large meal with everybody. So, and just remember that you need to keep your own level that you're working on. So this is not something that I'm telling you, remember, you have to keep 40 or 30 or 20 or 37.2. That's your own level. That's exactly where you're going down. So just keep it in mind and just save it up for tonight, for when you need to splurge.
And I just want to throw in this before we move on, because if you're going to a party and you're making a special food and it's special for you, well, double the recipe and then be more missionary about it, because a lot of us probably would be more willing to try something that was out of our normal experience if we had somebody else kind of leading us that direction. So I mean, a lot of people might think, oh, gluten-free food is terrible, it tastes terrible or whatever, and they might be shocked that actually what you're eating is tastes better than what they're eating, or something like that. And so as much as we can make it, more of a, we're embracing each other, we're being family, we're doing things to be kind to each other, the more we can give it that kind of atmosphere, the better. So double your recipe, make more than you need, and make some so that somebody else can try your special food.
And if you fall off the oxalate wagon, or jump off. I've done that before. Cut yourself some slack. You know, it's going to happen occasionally. You know, hopefully you don't jump off the wagon and indulge so much that you're in agony afterwards. Been there, done that. But you know, it happens. So, you know, bring some extra minerals with you, you know, to kind of help you get through that. But don't beat yourself up about it. You know, we're all human. It happens. And just get back on the wagon the next day.
Now, sometimes your body will do the correcting for you. I know there's certain foods that if I eat them and I kind of get off the oxalate that I'm used to level, there are parts of my body that talk to me. So that might happen to you too.
That's right. So,
Oh, I've said before, loaded baked potatoes, my downfall. Plátanos or plantains, I can't even be near plantains because I know I will overindulge. I'm better with the potatoes, but the plantains are still, you know, they're non grata. You know, if I see them, I'm look away. You just can't do those.
exactly. And if you also know that, you know, I guess it all comes out to talking and communicating. So if you're going to your sister-in-law's and she is famous for her spinach ravioli, you know, you can propose to bring the ravioli or an alternative ravioli so that they can serve two kinds, you know, or propose it, you know, I would love to make some with butternut pumpkin, and I think you're going to find it really interesting. And would you be willing to do something like that? You know, I think it's all in the communication and all in the proposal of alternatives. And just talking about it might be really, really really good idea.
Well, also, I've been in this situation where I was going to somebody else's home and they were going to produce some food, but I wasn't going to be put on them, on my hostess, the expectation that she would know how to cook my stuff. But I would call her to find out, well, what are you fixing? And then I would try to cook something that was pretty much the same thing.
I've done that too.
And that works
That
beautifully.
works really well. Yeah, we did that even for big celebrations. When my daughter had her first communion, we had like the big reunion with the whole family in a restaurant. We made a menu, but then I made a menu for her, and it looked exactly the same, and it was served by the same servers. And since she had her beautiful white dress, so we said this one goes to the white dress, and the rest get everything else. And it worked. I mean, sometimes it just takes being, you know, a little planning. So
That just makes me think of one story. This is not a Christmas story, but when my daughter got married, my niece was, I can't remember whether they were married yet or whether they were just dating or whatever. But anyway, he was coming to the wedding. And I think they were already married. But anyway, he was vegan. And so what we were eating was fajitas. That was what, you know, was being served at the wedding. And so we told the
cater.
director at this organization what it was, that we had a guest that needed to be this, and they've prepared the most incredible looking meal for him, and he didn't feel slighted in the least because he had an incredibly nice thing. And so you know, that's a way also that you can look out for the guests that you know have special needs. Is don't be afraid to ask you know, the director of the kitchen to see what they can do, because you will be surprised at a lot of restaurants or catering places or whatever will really bend over backwards to try to accommodate special guests.
That is absolutely true, Susan. And I have another anecdote. When my daughter, when we went to Disney, yeah, so we went during the holidays, and of course you have to eat at restaurants every meal. And it was just, it was just like, and I was not in my country. So it was not like I could just bring a ton of food and just have all these things ready. And it just took a little planning beforehand. So, we actually called the chef at the Disney parks, and we told them what the situation was and what her requirements were, and they provided, indeed. We paid the same price for the meal as for the rest of us, and she would have her needs accommodated. And it was just beautiful. It was fabulous. And it was a true holiday for me. So restaurants can do some things, and you could probably have your easy go-tos that agree with you. So if you know that, fish, that it's just roasted or just in the oven or in whatever with some zucchinis are going to be a good option for you, well, then you have already something that you can propose that they can provide. That it's not too difficult.
That made me think also of another situation that I broke my foot about 4 or 5 years ago. And so I had to go into rehab, and I was at a rehab center. And my goodness, the rehab center staff that was doing food just went crazy trying to accommodate my special dietary needs. And they did that. And it was a joy for them to do that. So I just guess what I'm saying is, don't be afraid if you need accommodations to get them, no matter what kind of institution that you're talking about. At least ask, because it's not going to hurt anybody for you to ask. And if they don't know, then give them a list, give them something to go by, and let it be kind of a learning opportunity for everybody.
But do that with time. I mean, if you're the 24th of December in a packed restaurant and you start telling them, oh, but I want a gluten-free option, they don't have time to react. Right. But if you call them tomorrow, the 13th, then they have time to react and to propose you something that you might be able to eat and enjoy.
Yeah. And a lot of things, like, as I said, I've been gluten-free for a long time, and it used to be a lot of trouble, and now it's practically everybody has a gluten-free options on their menu, and even have it on the menu, where it has GF by it if it's gluten-free. We are not there yet with oxalate, but maybe we'll get there someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'd love to go to the traveling. How do we travel low oxalate? I know we've already touched it on a couple of occasions, but I think it would just be really cool to just share those tips that worked for us so that it stays in this holiday life. So I know that Karla has is a pack of beautiful tips, because she actually takes a camper to the different family reunions. So can you tell us a little bit more about it?
There we go. Well, it helps if you have your own kitchen, but if you don't, one of the things that we always did, we always traveled by car because it was just too hard for my son to do air travel, and then we finally figured out, as we're driving, those 2 or 3 days, we're getting something out of it as a family. And, now that there's more of us, we love it because it's bonding time. But one of the things that we would do was every hotel that we stayed at had a kitchen. And if it didn't have a full kitchen, it at least had, a microwave. We would, bring foods that were easily prepared in a microwave, or, if we were staying, in a hotel with a kitchen, we could always hit a local grocery store and get those things. Now, with an RV or a trailer now, we just pack the fridge before we go with everything we need. Doesn't mean that we don't occasionally stop at a restaurant, because some days I don't really feel like cooking, but it's a good, it's a good option to have everything you need. So it's not something that you have to worry about. And you can still, hit the occasional fast food joint and get the burger without, the bun, or get one with a gluten-free bun. Or, we would ration the fries. Get a large fry, you get 10, you get 10, you get 10, you get 10. Because my kid was my kid's a fry hound, kind of like mom. So, and the other thing that we would do for supplements was we used little, what they call easy dose pill packs. So for every meal, before we even start the vacation, the supplements are packed up. So I don't have to worry, does everyone have everything they need for, for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner? Here, take a pack. It's got your name on it. And, it was extremely helpful.
Can't hear you, Patricia. I just wanted to throw out that a number of years ago, my mother was in the hospital at Thanksgiving. And so what we did was we had a potluck supper, and we actually spread everything out in the basically lobby where they would serve breakfast sometimes. So they had tables and things like that. But we were able to accommodate our family by doing a potluck supper in a hospital. How about that? So just, use your imagination. If you have a loved one that got sick, at a time like that, it's wonderful to be able to make something that's still a very precious family time at that place.
Absolutely. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. No, that idea, hold on just a second. That idea of having all your supplements ready, it's also very discreet, and that is really, really important. So, you don't want to feel like, oh my gosh, are you taking? So, have all those comments. Just have little, your little pouch ready. Have your water bottle ready, available with you at all times. And then you can just do your supplements at a very discreet time, and just be one more person, and just don't feel like you have to justify yourself or do anything like that. I think that was part of what was important for my kid, for example. When she was doing like camps and things like that, and she was away and she had to take a bunch of supplements, she didn't want to feel like the odd one that was taking all those things. So they would just, her leader, whatever, would take her to the leader's tent, just the two of them. They would take them, and then they would come back, and everybody was wondering what was happening in there. And they just kind of made her more interesting, but not different. So I think those are the kinds of things that we can do. And remember to hydrate. That is really, really important. When you're on the road, when you're in restaurants, when you're doing this and that, when you're distracted because there's gifts and kids and you're organizing things and doing all the logistics and whatever, we tend to forget to drink. And that's not something we want to do, especially if we're dumping sharp crystals. We want them to be very diluted so that they come out easily. So please remember to drink, drink, drink. And welcome to Monique.
Hi, Monique.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, no problem.
The joys of appointments that go long when they don't tell you that there's the possibility that they can go long. But yeah, here I am. I'm all in one piece.
That's good. So we're talking about traveling, Monique. So we already touched a little bit about going to the restaurant or going to a party or, you know, just moving somewhere else. But now we're really going on the traveling bit. And I know you want to talk about your famous mix, you know, with the Czechs and the pretzels.
Oh, yeah. My kids, I came up with this sort of trail mix / holiday mix, and a lot of people in North America will be familiar with the infamous pretzels, peanuts, you know,
Tex-Mex.
cereal mixed with, yeah, the festive mix mixed with, you know, the savory spices, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce and stuff. And so, you know, my kids like to have snacks, and I also liked the idea of, could we have some kind of festive mix where we weren't having to worry about the oxalate in it by and large. And so I do have a recipe, but I basically based it on one of these standard, you know, Christmas festive pretzel kind of mixes, but I just did the low oxalate substitutes. So like a gluten-free pretzel, rice Chex, white chocolate chips instead of, you know, regular chocolate chips if they wanted to have some. In that mix, I wasn't really using that so much because it wasn't a sweet mix, but we would have then a little bit of popcorn. And with what I know now about nuts, I think we had swapped out peanuts for probably macadamias back in the day when I was doing this, because my kids were pretty little when we first started. Now I would put baru nuts, this nut from Central America, which seems to be taking the North American market by storm, and which is one of the lowest oxalate nuts that are now on the market. And while pricey, they are tasty. So for people who really like peanuts or really like almonds, they almost taste like a cross between a peanut and an almond. Like they're really a nice add to something like this. So you know, I would do a mix like that where I had low oxalate, you know, savory bits, and then the kind of drizzle that you put on it and then bake it a little bit is like Worcestershire sauce and butter and salt and, you know, sort of the regular offenders, if you will, for these kinds of snack mixes, but very good. And a nice way to get something that we can bring that everybody can eat, but then my kids don't have to fall victim to the potato chips or the something else that they really shouldn't be eating. And I did do a sweet version of it, but it I can't remember the drizzle for that one, but then I would use like white chocolate chips, and I would use you know, something like it was awful. Like from a nutritional standpoint, it was like not health food, but it had, you know, like gummy worms and stuff in it, stuff that they can have, right? That's not high in oxalate. So just prepping stuff like that and having it available, and probably everybody's talked about this, but portability. That's really the name of the game when you're talking about parties and holiday season and going to people's houses. So, you know, those were some of our tricks. And I would also sometimes measure out an amount of popcorn. So a cup of popcorn is kind of okay, right? If you mix a few things in there that are really low oxalate, again, back to the gluten-free pretzels or something like that, that can be a nice snack size thing. And you can have the little bags made up. And what I would do is put little stickers on them and then have almost like so it looked festive on the outside. And then on the inside, there would be like almost like the fortune in a fortune cookie, but it was in the middle of the mix. And so the kids would be like, "Ooh, what are we going to get?" Right. So it was a lot of fun when they were little to do things like that, because then, it really felt different and special. If they were going to go into their little trail mix and they were going to find a little tag, and on the little tag, it had, sometimes we did, sort of a bit of a hide and seek kind of thing, where they were following clues to find things that might be in the little trail mix bags, or the clue started in a trail mix bag, but then you went to the Christmas tree and there was something you pulled off the Christmas tree and it had something in it. And, that kind of thing can take simple food and still turn it into something fun. Like, my kids are now going to be 17 soon, and the oldest one's 22, and they still want Easter egg hunts, just as an example, because it was this, find the first clue, find the next clue, find the next clue, and that they really loved that. So, things that we can do that can be a lot of fun, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all based on what the food is either. You can add these other things that make it fun. But yeah, portability.
Can I ask you a question, Monique?
Sure.
I looked up barrow nuts on Amazon, and I ended up with a lot of hardware, like the nuts that you screw on something.
Yeah. Okay. If you look
How do
up
you spell it?
Baruka, it
Baruka.
might be under Baruka. So some places call them Baru, Baru, but there's a brand called Baruka, Baruka, and it may be that you'll have better luck
Yeah.
with Baruka than you do with
Yeah,
Baru.
the Baruka and the Baru, Baru, worked on my Amazon. So I'm just
Okay.
hint for everybody if you're trying to find what she's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is it honestly, my youngest never ate a peanut in her life. So the first time my son and I were raving about something that was a peanut butter alternative, she was like, eh. So she doesn't care about Baru nuts. They don't do anything for her. But my son and I, who had both had peanut things before, Baru nuts, yeah, they're a really wonderful alternative. Not as strong as a peanut. Yeah, a little like a peanut almond flavor kind of combination. It's very nice as an alternative.
Well, and when you're traveling, another thing that you can think of is cold cuts. I mean, we traveled with, ham, turkey, roast beef. The husband was a cheese hound. I'm kind of a cheese hound. We actually used the Daya cheese slices for the son when he was dairy free. Now he's an official cheese hound. But, cheese sticks, yogurt, and if you're dairy free, coconut yogurt was a staple. We would get these small raisin boxes, not the 1.5 ounce, but I think they have little 1/2 ounce mini snack boxes. We would get those, and cranberry boxes, because the kid was a cranberry freak, loves those. And then bottles of juice that he could have. We didn't want him really having sodas, so he would occasionally get some apple juice or cranberry juice, which he was, the unsweetened stuff he was a real fan of. Never could I'm like, ugh. But he was all on that. White grape juice, he was good. He was good with that. So standard stuff. Fruit, if you can take some grapes or some sliced up watermelon, just stick everything in a cooler, and your low oxalate snacking is there.
We did exactly the same thing. And in fact, my husband actually became a fan of doing it that way, rather than having to stop anywhere and try and argue with a menu, so to speak. Right. So same sort of thing, cheese, cut in chunks, we would often make our own pieces of like chicken strips from breast. We would do that in the morning, then we would pack it all up. You know, if we were only going to be on the road for X number of hours, especially if it's cold outside, we didn't worry too much about special treatment, but we did have a small cooler. We would have red pepper strips, we would have cucumber slices, we would have the small containers of yogurt where you get for these little single serve, like, so anything like that. Again, we're sort of back to this portability, and making sure that you have something you can eat. Like, quite literally, this was really our objective. Don't argue with anybody about food. Just don't, right? If you've got something you can eat, you don't have to argue with anyone. And if it's nice enough to share with other people, then you let your diet speak. Because I remember my brothers thinking that, oh my God, I couldn't live without X, whatever X food was. And then, you know, for years, my brothers were then watching us very comfortably live without X, right? Whatever X was. And that it's not only was it a healthy way to eat, but it was often a fun way to eat. And it, you know, cost wise, it's a lot less expensive to not have to argue with a menu at a restaurant versus having, you know, our cooler bag, which would get us, we often traveled from the Toronto area to Haliburton, which is one of the areas up here, which is cottage country, and it's beautiful. And my in-laws were there. And so 3.5, 4 hours drive. That's assuming you don't stop. But of course, with kids, you always stop. So, you know, we would stop someplace for coffee and everybody have a pee break or whatever. Our little cooler of food to get us there, get people through snacks, get us through often a meal somewhere in there. If we left the house at 10, we were going to arrive at 2 and people were going to need lunch. It might cost us $15, maybe less. If we stopped at a fast food place, we were going to be spending $35, $40 for 4 people. It made sense to us on all levels.
Yeah.
You know, apple slices are simple. We had all kinds of stuff where we didn't have to worry about even whether the food was seasonal, because apples are available all the time. And most apples are low to very low in the medium scale. And so it's not a big deal to chop up apples and make sure everybody's got that available too. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things I did is that I just took the whole thing. You know, I didn't chop the apples and put them in a bag and take them. I just took the apples and chopped them on their way. So that was just really, really simple. But definitely those are all kinds of things that we did. We have a question.
Well, actually, I see somebody saying rice cakes. I am 100% in on rice cakes. We did everything with rice cakes or rice crackers. They were so handy to take along, and you could take 2 crackers and have something slapped between them if you wanted to, or you could take a nice piece of cold meat in a slice and put it on top of a rice cake. And that was a really simple way for somebody to eat something nutritious. Yeah. Some great ideas that Lisa has put there. Yeah.
Yeah, so she said she brought canned tuna, salmon, you know, rice cakes, cocoa flakes, sprouted pumpkin seeds, cut up veggies, and fruit. Of course, always take blueberries in season. Yeah, absolutely. So those are the kinds of things that, you know, we really need to look at. But what happens once we overdid it and we're not feeling so good? So what are we going to do? Well, take with you what you might need. If you don't need it, more power to you. But if you do, you want to have it in your luggage. And some of those basic things that we need to put on those things are, for example, your Epsom salts, your baking soda, your minerals, your water bottle. You know, those are like the basics. And Susan's going to tell us, little trick that we use for the Epsom salts in case you don't go to a place where you can actually soak in.
Well, I have to give my father credit for inspiring us to learn about this, because the whole reason I got into doing research in sulfate and oxalate started off with my father's issues, because he had dementia and he had broken his hip, so he could not get into a tub. And so I had been hearing about some of his issues were improving in children with autism with Epsom salt. So I thought, well, I sure want to try it on him and see if it works the same. And so what we did was, like, we could get just like a coffee cup, and you can get that anywhere you go. And we put about this much Epsom salts down in the bottom of it, and then add warm water up, to about, halfway up. And then we would get a sponge. So you have to have your sponge with you if you're traveling. Okay, so be sure you have your sponge with you. But then you can dip it in the Epsom salts solution. And what we did with my dad was we applied it neck down after he had a bath, because he had, an aide that would have him, on one of those chairs that you sit in the bathtub, and somebody helps clean you up, and then they would dry him off and then put it neck down, and it completely changed his life. And so with that, we also learned, I had a daughter that needed Epsom salts, and she was about 3 or 4 at the time, I guess. And so we learned with her to make a solution and put it in one of those little bottles that you use to lick stamps that have a little sponge on the top. And though she would carry that with her, and she could, anywhere, she could just lift up her little shirt, and put it on her tummy. And so it was able to bail us out of a lot of situations, because she would absolutely, if we went to a restaurant and she got exposed to like pine sol that they were cleaning the floors with, or even salsa, at a Mexican restaurant, things like that would just completely set her off. And so we had to have something to respond quickly to that sort of emergency that would come up.
The idea of a dauber bottle is just a great idea.
It was her idea. Actually, my daughter came up with that.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I have to put that in my little toolkit too.
What we used to do.
Well, and the thing is, I just don't like to spend money where I don't have to. Okay, so you can buy a product that somebody will make for you that will cost a bunch of money, or water's not very expensive. So if you can figure out some way to get the Epsom salts in portable, then it does not take very much to mix with water to end up being very effective.
Oh, and the question is, what or how do you use that baking soda for? Well, the idea is that you can make that solution with Epsom salts and baking soda in equal proportions. And the way we used to do it is that we would exactly dissolve it in some warm water, but then we probably, that thick mix, we would mix it in like a cream of some kind, and then we would just rub it as body cream. And it worked beautifully as well. And it was funny because then you would have like this little very, very light powder on top of your skin. But that worked also really, really well. So other things that you can do as well is digestive enzymes. If you're gone overboard and you're eating a little bit more than what you should have, give yourself some help. There's different types of enzymes depending on the kinds of things that you've been eating, and you take, and the dose is based on the food that you take, not necessarily how big you are. So if you've taken a ton of bread or something, you can get some of those enzymes that take care of that.
And if
you know,
it's
I'm
not
sorry.
just oxalate, you can get enzymes for other things, like for people who have issues that would include salicylates, you can get no phenol, and yeah, there's other things that we can do to, if our system just gets really overstressed, you may have other things that you have an issue with too.
Yeah, there's some pills that help you if you get exposure to gluten, for instance. That's also something that could be helpful for some people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with using the ones that are for gluten, but I have definitely used digestive enzymes when I've just had too much going on, because I find oxalate alone will sort of mess my digestion up a bit too. So
Well, I can't think of the name of it, but there is a kind of enzyme that just has a little, crunchy, sugary, little caplet kind of thing that you eat, and they're very portable. So, in using the kind of tiny sack that Karla came up with, you could take those and keep them in your purse.
Yeah.
Or in your pocket, men.
Absolutely. The other thing that you really should not forget is your minerals, whatever minerals are working for you. And remember that if you're dumping, then you want to up a little bit your potassium as well. So maybe, a salt shaker with the no salt, the potassium chloride. And that might be useful, have on the lookout where you could get maybe some bananas or things like that, so that you can up your dietary potassium. That might be helpful as well. And remember also that if you are dumping and you need it to stop, you can up your consumption of oxalate very slightly and just kind of slow it down a little bit.
I don't know if they're still available, but I am going to mention my favorite product, Basin Tabs, which has a blister pack. So my son, who would occasionally do something a little bit beyond his oxalate limits during Christmas time, especially now that he's engaged and his soon-to-be in-laws are Italian and they like certain things which are a bit higher in oxalate, he would carry a pack of blister pack minerals. And that allowed him to say, okay, it wasn't that bad, I'll have one or two. When it was really bad, I'll have 3 or 4. So, but Basin Tabs at this point in time in North America only seem to be available from Canada. And as I understand it, the customer service is French speaking, and some people have had some challenges with them. So I'll put the spelling of the product in the chat, but I don't know if they have an American distributor again, but for a while they did not. And it was only Canada, and it was a bit of a challenge to get it. So just warning people.
But that's I think we pretty much covered what we wanted to talk to you about. Just have a lot of probably the most important point that we're still missing is give yourself some grace, like Karla said, at the beginning. It's not going to be perfect. Things happen, and just go with the flow. Enjoy what's really, really important. This is holiday time. This is family time. This is communication time, love time. So just remember that that's what it's all about. It's not about, who brought what to eat or who didn't, listen to what I needed or whatever. Just try to go, go with the flow and just enjoy the holiday season. And I guess we want to wish you all our very best. And we have 2 little gifts for you. We have 2 cheat sheets that we're going to be posting in the comments of this recording. And I'm going to be posting them. Well, actually, I posted them in the chat for those that are joining us live. So we have the Wizard's Tips for Holidays, which is like a little one-page resume of everything that we talked about. And then we have the Urban Legends Wizards poster, which is something that we're going to be talking then on the 9th of January. Let me just show you then the little poster that we made for you. So this is, can you see it? So
Yep.
this are our
Yep,
tips
we can see it.
for family holidays. So take your own food to the parties, soups, casseroles, you can share and have something good to eat. Drink your water, take it with you. Have your supplements discreetly, take your little pouch. Remember your minerals and your hydration. Make an Epsom salt and baking soda solution to support that chemistry. Use it if you can't soap, spray it on, or put it in a favorite cream and rub, or put it in a dabbing bottle like Susan's daughter did. So are you dumping? Up your oxalate slightly. Do all of the above. And remember to up your potassium as well. And then give yourself some grace. Try to learn from them, move on. So that's it for us. I guess what's left over is for us to give you our best wishes. I want to give my best wishes to these three lovely ladies that I love so much. And we hope you have a wonderful holiday season. And just also remember that everybody, all of the moderators are also going to be having holidays. So please bear with us and we will see you again on the 9th of January. So if everybody wants to say anything else.
Hope you all have a wonderful holiday.
Same here. Just be kind to yourself and to your family.
Yeah, all the best to everyone who has come on board with us, subscribed to our channel, liked our videos. We are all about getting the word out so that you can live your best and healthiest life while doing a low oxalate diet. So don't let any little moment where you decided that you wanted to have a taste of something hold you down. All of that is temporary. All the women you've seen here today have all occasionally had a slip up, I'm sure. And we can all vouch for the fact that you don't have to be perfect to do this way of eating and be successful. You know, be as healthy as you can be. And so we're definitely wishing everyone here wonderful holiday season. Enjoy your time with family and friends. And may the new year come in with better health for all of us.
Amen.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you then with the Wizards of Ox Live on the 9th of January. Bye, everybody.